is to come here for a screening in general, but especially tonight with all the heavy rain and everything, I really do appreciate this. So we wanted to have this screening as a little thank you to everyone who's been a part of making this movie, as well as the very close people to us who supported us in making this movie. So we've got lots of people who know us directly, some family, some friends. At the end of the day, I just want you to enjoy the film. Feel what you feel. Whatever happens, I'm here about the Q&A with the actors, so shout at them, shout at me, you know, you name it. But I just want you guys to just have an experience. The most important thing is to feel something. And I think from the actors, we all want to just say, big, big, big. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to look at the people around you here. These are the people who made this movie. I am only a conduit, if that makes any sense. I'm only a medium for this film. As you can tell, it's a difficult film to watch, difficult film to experience. There's so many different things that are happening. And more importantly, it's a very emotion-driven film. So I know there's going to be lots of questions as to, was it all in his head, or was it real, or was it not real? Is it a demon?
Ask the writer.
But the most important thing is if you felt something. For me, cinema is driven by feelings, driven by emotion. Motion and emotion, as Adze once told me over here. I think that if you've got that at the very core of any film that you make, then you're going somewhere. And I think that for the longest time in South Africa, we have been looking for these kinds of things. And I hope whoever walks out of here, whoever sees this Q&A, that if they walk away and think that they can make a film because they've watched someone they know make a film, then we all benefit. But I just want to look at the people over here, really just thank them for the amazing thing that they've done. I know some of you know what happened an hour before we started rolling cameras. And honestly, it was the most shocking thing in the world that could possibly happen to anyone. But to lose, funny enough, my own father an hour before we started rolling, these are the people who helped hold that together and helped me make this movie. That's why I say any director is only as strong as the people they surround themselves with. So, Q&As. For them mostly. Let's go for it. Anyone want to ask a question? Any question whatsoever. Just let me know, even if it's like, ah!
Can I recommend that you sit down with the long night? So tell me, man, are you inspired by M. Night?
You know, funny you say that, right? Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, specifically Unbreakable. I remember watching it when I was a kid at that point. Not really, but I'm just going to say, just to not reveal my age. Unbreakable was one of the most moving films for me. It was actually, for me, the perfect superhero film. Especially considering what superhero films are now. This is a movie where he really decided to go all the way in on telling something that meant something for him, and hoped that the rest of the world would find it interesting. So M. Night is, yeah, he's definitely an influence. Look, I also share some genetics with him down the line. That's also but yeah, he would be, but not necessarily the twist part. I know that everyone talks about the twists, but yeah, for me, he knows the kind of story he wants to tell, and he tries to find a home for it. And as a result of that, his films always feel new, always feel fresh, different, even if you don't like them. But they always are as much of a Shyamalan movie as they possibly could be.
So let me just say a fantastic job.
Speak out loud, Adze, we can't hear you.
That's why we have ADs, guys. Fantastic job to all the cast. And you guys killed it. I think the performances were just brilliant across the board. And just talk to me about your process, because it felt like, I just want to know what your process was like with the director concerning, all the emotions and the continuity of the emotions. Because we all know how it works and stuff.
Yeah.
Just talk to me about your process.
Look, I'm going to definitely do that. And just for the people who aren't involved in the film industry and don't quite know what a director does, reality is that we are responsible for making sure that everyone else is on board with the story. So everyone else has their own very unique, very high level of creativity in their own field. So the actors, the DOP, everyone is involved. And Noni has, where's Noni? She hiding. The incredible Noni. So every element is there, but really as a director, my sole responsibility is to try and make sure I don't do damage to the story by putting my own ego into place. So what my process was for this film was, at the fundamental core, what was the scene about? What was the scene going to be about? What will be the scene after this and before this? And how am I going to track that with these two? Because I knew that the core of this particular story was Marius' story and Tembi's story. And the times when it shifts in, shifts out, shifts in, shifts out, and eventually when it falls apart. So my process for this film was, unfortunately, no one staying with these two lovely individuals. It's method directing, if you want to put it like that. But each and every day was getting to set, getting everything I needed for Guto to have everything he needed, ensuring that the team had what they needed, and really, within this critical time we had, which was often just minutes, sitting down with both of them and saying, right, this is the moment we need to explore. This is the moment we need to achieve. And let me tell you, it's several takes. Some of those takes work, some of them don't, and it's pushing each other to get those takes in. But the emotional journey of it was, I mean, my producer Khalid would complain a lot that I was holding a lot of the story within myself. Really what it was, I was holding the story with three of us. So they knew exactly what the moment was going to be. And it just became a moment of just guiding them between takes and ensuring that the continuity of emotions were there. But I ultimately did rely on them quite a lot. I mean, Richard knows how much I had to rely on him to help with the continuity of the story and the emotional continuity. He kept me in check. You know, oftentimes when we were running through scenes, and I knew what I wanted as the filmmaker. But Richard was like, no, but hold on. Marius is experiencing this thing. And thanks to his own personal journey with the story as well. And Nomsa would do the same thing with Tembi. And luckily everyone else came on board on that process. But I think what it came down to the day was, what is Marius' story? What is Tembi's story? What is their story in this scene? How can I get out the way for them to do that? How do I ensure that the camera work that we do, is as, I suppose, kinetic and natural as possible, so that we don't hold them in place trying to get the shot. It was the fight scene that we, the big fight scene, which of course Michael was involved in, the biggest instigator of it. We tried that scene 3 times over with static cameras, and we all felt that the energy was wrong. We all felt something was missing. And what it was is that we needed to stop keeping people into place and have Guto go handheld with it, with the shoulder in, and just follow them and try and hope to dear God that with the level of emotion that was being experienced in that scene that we'd be able to capture it. And we do it once, twice, 3 times. Asked Richard to come back and bear his heart again for a 4th time, which was honestly one of the hardest things we've had to do. I just hope we could capture it. And I think that was the process. It's very unlike any film I've ever shot in my life. Completely. And I don't just, of course, think about the fact of what my emotional journey was with this film. But I also think that it required me to have like a complete level of dedication, which meant, unfortunately, my poor wife and my sister are here. They were not communicating with me for some 16, 17 hours a day, because I was just trying to understand the story. The story which I hope we somehow managed to capture, some part of it in this movie. I know I'm not really answering your question, but I mean, technically, it's the same as it is, You get your shot list, you get the things into place, you write the scene. And as you guys know, we do that, and then suddenly the emotions start leaking through on the scene, and I realize we have to move quicker than them in order to capture that stuff. We have to move things around as quickly as possible and try to capture it, try not ruin it, because somehow the story was starting to tell itself, and all I could do was just show, push in this direction, push in that direction, and gently guide it so that it became, so we still somehow stuck to what was in the screenplay. But yeah. I don't know, maybe it's a supernatural thing. Maybe I was Marius in that movie.
Hi guys, congratulations. First and foremost, it was lovely to work with you guys. I'm a technical gaddy, so I need to ask. Director, cinematographer, editor. My favorite scenes were the church scene with the confrontation with the pastor, and I think the end sequence when we met Jasmine's character. Well, not met, but when we were with Jasmine's character and went to the end. I wanted to know, did you guys have a process with messing with Morris's psyche in the way that you edited, shot, and directed that specific space. Especially with the church scene, what were your thoughts going into how you wanted it to turn out? And with the last scene, with the last sequence, I'd say, with the reds and stuff, what were your processes behind those specific moments? Because I think they really showed us and highlighted how Morris really was going through a lot. Yeah.
Well, what I'm going to do actually is let's go through, because you've asked about three scenes, right? So let's go to the church. And actually I'm going to let Guto and Louis speak about those scenes, because there's a bigger part of the culprit as to how those scenes came about as I could have done. But with the church sequence, what do you remember of that scene?
You see, to me, the movie was always about contrast, about light and dark, about conceal, reveal, about have, not have. I remember always in Mario's character trying to find the negative space, because there was a presence there that we don't know it was. And in every scene, what was the most interesting thing for me was to be so close to the characters, like physically close, that I would, it's like being on a play and you hear with the actors, I can hear them breathing, I can feel their heat, And the film was all about emotion and acting and about, we all part of Tapiso's vision, we were all playing a role. And I think if we came together as a family, everything fell into place, from the editing, from the acting, from the directing. To me, it was easy to go because the direction was so strong.
With the church sequence, it was so when I first thought of Prime, I first thought of that scene. It was the very first scene that came to me. This idea of this question. I think perhaps as a filmmaker, I'm trying to understand many things about my own self and what higher power there might actually be, if there is a higher power. Unfortunately, the flavor of that in my life is Catholicism. So this idea, this question of what are the things much larger than our faith that could actually come to ruin us, and if we're ignorant of them. So the church sequence always had to be something which I felt was going to be bigger than life, hence the writing of it, hence the performance of it. It always felt as if like it was an angel coming down. And angels, if you go into the whole thing, whether it's Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, it's always the same thing. They're much bigger than us. So when they come to us, we're terrified because we have no idea what they're saying. They're speaking on such a large level that it will take us years to understand what they're saying. And for me, that was always what that scene felt like. I remember speaking to the Catholic Church about it, and I said, this is what we're going to shoot there. And let's just say the priest was he was like, yeah, okay, I sort of understand what you're saying. But it was this whole idea of this priest wasn't a real person. It was this thing coming down. Maurice is your last chance. Here's the edict, right? And of course Maurice is going to hold on to his trauma. He's not going to let go of it. So we needed a space that was going to fill that. And normally confessions are in confession booths, right? But we went to that place and we saw the natural light that was inside that church. And I think it was Guto who said, can I just show you something? And he showed me that it was inside the image, and I realized this is what it has to be. He completely helped me change around that as well. As you know, we only had 2 hours to shoot it.
Yeah.
So 2 hours to set up, 2 hours to do everything, and literally 30 minutes to shoot, right? So that was something. But anyway, so that's the church sequence. Then I'm going to speak about colors before I get to the ending of Louis, because if anything, this film is an ode to editing. This in particular. Because the editing on this is so close to new wave and things like that, expression of ideas. It respects you as an audience. It respects that you're going to be containing the ideas and holding on to them and keeping up with the story. It's not going to try to spoon feed you. And a big part of that came through from Louis. I always talk about the opening scene where Marius is on the bed and he's looking at the wall and it cuts to the ring. Right, that cut, we have so much stuff in between that which Marius is doing. He made that cut and I realized that's the movie. That's how the movie was going to go. This idea that we could trust the audience. with these cinematic ideas. You can just trust that going from this to cutting to a ring meant something. So when it came down to choosing colors, so red, blue, or of course Eva Nama's colors, we know something is going wrong when red and blue come into the picture, the different shades of it, the sensuality, the sexuality, the monstrousness of it, because it's a demon that we're dealing with, an ancient demon. And what happened is that all of that came through right at the end of the film with playing with those ideas. So when it came time to working with it with Louis, he was going to say exactly how we did it, because he had like the 1,500 ways we had to approach it. It became, how do we keep this visual language cohesive? How do we say, okay, Nama's here. When is Nama taking over? When is Marish going to fight back? When is Tembi going to try and struggle? And when is that going to fall down? So how did you do that end sequence?
I think like just between the church and the end sequence, like so the first draft was a very different movie to what we saw now. Originally, like all of Mama's stuff had their own separate scenes, and then Thabiso and I sort of realized like we can't have that ending in that church sequence and not sort of engage with Mama a little bit earlier. And so basically before the church, she's an idea. And then after the church, you see her becoming actually quite prominent in the film. And so we actually like color coded Mama, and we made sure like she popped up there with pink every now and then throughout the film. But the church scene as well, like we just felt like we needed to break that up specifically with that introduction of Mama, and that's why we did it right there, where he actually meets her, in a way exposes her. But then, look, the first time Thabiso showed me the end sequence, I expected footage. And then it was like these video footage, but it was stills. Like people were posing, but it was rolling. And so we didn't really know what to do with that. And so it totally started feeling like a sort of not a stop motion, but the old typical film, like where it's like hopping frames and drop back black underneath and put cool music, and it actually started.
I think Louis is underselling himself. So it's it's in the screenplay actually. You know,
Yes.
flashes of dark, flashes of light,
Yeah.
flashes of dark, flashes of light. To try to make that cinematic was. I know the actors were staring at me and like, you want us to pose in the shot? And I said, don't worry, it's gonna work. It's just it's gonna work. And what it came down to is like, and I also convincing Louis to remove frames.
Yeah.
Because what it came, I love cinema. You know, I've watched as many films as possible. How can we translate that idea to something that's so simple but so emotional, so that the audience in South Africa can latch onto it and know that it's something significant, that it's an attack. You know, this jumping in or jumping out, it's an attack, something's attacking it. Cutting to black and it's an all editing trick, but it's always there in the screenplay. This idea of light switching on and off as Nam is attacking. And it just so happened to be red, it so happened to be these things.
And that's your part of, would you consider this an experimental film?
Oh yeah, but I think every film that tries to be true to story, that tries to be true to performance, that tries to be true to trying to create something is experimental. I think the idea behind mainstream and so forth is just what the lines of experimental are. James Cameron, became the James Cameron we know because he experimented so much and created a new language which became the language you know. Christopher Nolan, who's possibly going to win an Oscar for Oppenheimer.
No way.
I just got
Tell us how you really feel.
He's perfected his own brand of cinema. He's perfected his own brand of editing and so forth, which works for him. And he's trained the audience to experience it in that way. So every film is experimental.
Congratulations, everyone. So obviously this is a very heavy film, so I wanted to know from the actors, how did you prepare for, Richard, Lutza, how do you put a diva on screen? She was low-key like that, and I was like, oh, okay, how did you guys prepare for these roles?
You want me to start? That's a very difficult question. I think one of the things that Thabiso and I spoke about the most is this film came into my life at a very very much at a crossroads in my life. A lot of the things that Marius has experienced, unfortunately, I've experienced a few of those things in my past, so it was a little bit personal at times, which to answer your question about sustaining the emotions, unfortunately, when you've experienced something and you've unfortunately let yourself live in the past for long enough, you kind of get an idea of what it feels like. So it's sort of easier to recreate. So the preparation for this was just, holy shit, we're going to get on this roller coaster and we hope we survive.
Can I say something about Richard? It was so incredible through the filming process how he lived this character.
Cheers.
And I'll go with just set in the morning. I'm like, have you slept? He says, no. His eyes are getting redder and redder.
I don't think I slept for 15 days.
Yeah. And it was so intense. He broke down like every day more and more. It was quite also. It was hard to see him, like, it was breaking down inside.
I think I lost like 10 kilos.
Yeah.
No, I'm being serious. I lost like
Not
10
joking.
kilos in 2 weeks.
I was there. I witnessed
Yeah,
it.
it's nuts.
So you gained it.
Okay, no sir.
So for me, I kind of share the same sentiments with Richard in the sense that I really related to the character, because also in my personal life, I've had a loved one also experience similar things. So for me, it was from a point of, hey, listen, I want to help this person, but you know the saying that goes, external love can't help somebody help themselves. So it's all about the person helping themselves. And I think even the ending, the last shot that Timby had, I think that was the heaviest, because it really felt to the point where it was like, she wants to help him. She tried everything that she could at the time that she could, but it still didn't fix anything. It still didn't help him save himself, So I think that it was a lot to take in. And working alongside Richard was an honor as well, because he was just incredible with his performance, and it was more reacting to his acting. I could feel him at every single moment of every single shot. I was like, I get you, and I'm here for you. So that was a beautiful experience.
I didn't relate to my character. When Thabiso and I were speaking about how we envisioned her, we spoke about the biblical references that Nama has, where she's this like fallen angel that's been betrayed by man and is now like out for vengeance, which I think is really, really wonderful. But I think it's, as actors, we really want to have like an emotional thing that connects us to our characters, and I've never been so utterly betrayed like that. So I was like, I don't know, but I found her, I think, in trying to see her more like a creature than a person. And so I remember Thabiso and I was speaking of, well, if she was an animal, what kind of animal was she? And I saw her as this like, almost like a wild cat. I don't know if you've ever seen cats, they love to like knock things off of counters. They like, and then they break things. And I saw her like that, very, more like this like feline creature who's toying with Marius and his relationship with Tembi, and just trying to push him as far as she can to a breaking point. And so I used the animal reference, and also I listened to a lot of music, so I put a playlist together of a whole bunch of scores from different films that I thought could help me connect to her a little bit better.
It's so nice hearing these masterful actors talk about their work, like it's like crib notes for life. But this was such a difficult role for me, because I'm staring at somebody who basically turned me into the Frankenstein that you see now, and then someone who finished the job. It's like MQ and Thabiso, you put the two of us together. And
Wow, buddy.
That's my supervillain origin story there. But I think what was really nice about this is that I came on, and the best way I can describe it is like I was getting subbed on in the second half, and like David Beckham, Ronaldo, and like they're already cooking like this. The entire set was alive. Like, you know, it was just, you know, they were living in the house. They were living those characters. I mean, like when I saw Richard, I mean, I'm like, the thing is, like, everyone in the industry knows Richard because he's the nicest guy you'll meet, and he's like so professional. It's terrifying. And now I gotta go one-on-one with this guy. And I think that, like, I always equated back to the classics. And for me, when I was here, I always thought, like, all right, this is Hamlet. That's Hamlet, right? That's Ophelia. You know, I guess I've got to kind of be a bad guy. But it was so complicated because it's, you know, it's easy to be an antagonist when the person's perception of you is completely concrete. But with this, it was difficult because it's like, Chris, he might look like a jerk, but he's not a bad guy. He's a guy who's trying to get a job done, and his coworkers kind of left him high and dry. And Marius,
saying the right things, doesn't he?
yeah, things, but Marius thinks that he's the worst guy ever. So it's this weird line that you have to kind of like dance between of like kind of being a reasonable person in unreasonable circumstances, but also kind of having that antagonistic trying to push the pressure points. And the thing is that like Richard and I are both so competitive that those fight scenes started to get a bit ugly because it was this thing of like we kept finding each other's pressure points. And the thing is, like, you guys saw that shower scene, right? Like, Richard is jacked. At any point, if that guy wanted to beat me up, he could. But my job is to get a reaction out of him.
Except I'm a youngest child and I got beaten a lot. So I'm not going to do that.
No, I mean, this role was nothing short of a blessing, and honestly, I think that it was a real watershed moment for me because I can take a look at all the roles that I had before this movie and all the roles that I had after this movie. It's like two different guys, and I have to thank this all-star team, my genius, and I know that everyone's giving you two your flowers, and good, because how good did that movie look, guys?
I want to actually say something about the actors we have over here. Now, one of the biggest things I think with this film was for me to put forward voices that I knew would be the thing that I saw what South African cinema could be one day. My own flawed view of South African cinema would be that we're trying to tap into this young energy which is dealing with this country, where we're slowly being disillusioned by the people who have come before us. Across the board, doesn't matter which political party, whatever. So how do we reclaim that space? How do we say this is who we are meant? This is who we could be. So the actors had to be that. There had to be new faces who I saw were film actors, were film possibly stars. You know, looking at film possibly stars who had not been able to work in the industry because there are different requirements in TV, different requirements in advertising, different requirements on all of these things, which often let voices and faces like this, which deserve time to be understood, to be seen, to allow the nuances play out, to allow these people to be on screen, because you often don't get them when you're making a TV show and you have 30 pages or something to shoot in a day. And you have to get the pages in. So it cuts time out, and cinema is time. Cinema, watching movies is that, You have to be patient. Sometimes it's rough, sometimes it's for the best, but I wanted to put the actors where I believed could do that on screen.
You have this thing of always telling very hard stories. And I've known producer for a while, and his very first film was a short film that was also a very difficult watch. But I remember sitting down and having this conversation with the producer of the film. And I just want to say it's rare now that we have people who are bold enough and brave enough to speak about race, to speak about the politics, of sexuality, religion, faith. And I just want to say I'm really, really glad that you are not shy in going down this rabbit hole, because it's an elixir, it's a tonic that I think we all need, especially in this country and of course by and large the world. We see ourselves in this story, to be honest, and the more we see ourselves, the more easier it is to have the conversation about the solutions, if at all there's such a thing. So thank you for this project. Thank you for this story. Thank you guys for this this very, very curious film. Thank you.
Thank you. Question, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the indie sort of journey and process? Do you set out with the intention to make an indie film? How difficult is it? What are some of the decisions you've had to make along the way to get to that?
Well, you're looking at a team of people over here who've worked in the indie filmmaking scene in South Africa.
Everybody in South Africa is indie.
Everyone. Especially if you're trying to make a film. It's like the hardest thing in the world to do here because it's not a priority, and not because of anyone's fault. It's that there isn't that surefire or ticket box office sales, which you might get in other countries. But as
on
Adze,
Netflix.
As Adze mentioned, everyone is an indie filmmaker here. But what is an indie filmmaker? It's someone who's going to tell a story, and is going to stick to telling that story no matter what happens, even to the detriment of everyone around it. They have to tell that story. So I've taken it upon myself to be that. I suppose I didn't have a choice. My father we would watch all the films. When I say all the films he grew up watching, we would watch every single time we had an opportunity. Talking about The Godfather, talking about Good Bad Lucky, you name it, all Bollywood films. And it got to a point where I was watching him watch films because I knew the film so well. That was my first interaction with film. I could not want to do that for the audience. I could not want to bring that to anyone who wants to watch films. And to be honest, that's my guiding light. I can't not make films that way. So in South Africa, that's the indie filmmaking spirit. And really the journey is you make sure you get a screenplay that works. You can do it yourself. No one's going to pay you to do it.
Right.
The reality is, especially if you're making a feature film where you're trying to find funding for it, the journey starts with you. You're the first person that invests in it. I know that a lot of people do a lot of work in terms of approaching your NFVF and so forth for development funds. And I think that's great. You should do that if you have the space to do that. But if something hits you like a lightning bolt and you need to bring it out there, you can't wait.
Right.
You have to put it out. You have to put it on the page. So we were going to always make the film, and no.
And Father James says hi to you.
We were always going to make the film, and you can actually ask Charles over there. We applied for funding because I was like, you know what, I'm going to make this with no money. Richard over here we were going to run around Johannesburg with no money whatsoever, hide the camera in the bag and go into the country and steal as many shots as possible, go into church and then get banned from all these places. We were going to do that. I'm not kidding. We were going to do that.
So what are we doing with the next film?
But I remember having a conversation with my father about this, and I said, this is what I'm planning on doing. And he said, why aren't you just trying to find somebody for it? I said, well, I've been told no for 5 years, for so long. I've applied and failed and applied and failed. Adze over here, you don't understand how fortunate I am to have Adze in my life. Adze is literally a major contributing factor to me having a career. Because filmmakers supporting other filmmakers is what teaches everything. Adze ensured that I had always had an eye on something, that if I could help out on another project, I would do something. I'd learn, I'd grow, I would try to put something out. So I was disillusioned, but I knew that the possibilities would be there if I just put something out there. So I applied to the NFVF. I applied for the TV budget fund, which I knew I could take 350,000 and still make a film. It wasn't going to be a limitation because we were going to go around the city and do whatever we wanted to without permits or whatever. So 350,000 meant that we could get food. It meant that we could get those kinds of things. But I was always going to do that. And then some crazy thing said, apply to the other fund as well. Netflix, NFVF, both of who have supported me the entire way with this film. And I am eternally grateful to that. Because without them, we would not be sitting here. I hope you understand what that means. In a country like South Africa, where we have much bigger problems. We have people who go hungry to bed, who are trying to think about the next day in terms of how do I feed my family, how do I get to work, because I can't afford transportation. Much bigger problems. So the NFVF, first and foremost, is trying to change how cinema is approached in our country. They try, but they're a government institution as well.
Right.
You know, we have to come 50% of the way, which we don't do as filmmakers in this country. So, and if you have Netflix applied to it, one of, what was it? Something like 250 projects shortlisted for the Tish. I know, but Adze knows the odds are always in my favor whenever I go against crazy odds. My first short film, 10,000 people applied and 10,000 people were pitching. So it's, the odds are always ever, I guess, in my favor, whatever it is. But so we pitched, and for some reason they liked us. For some reason they thought the story was important enough. They thought that we could be serious filmmakers. And we got the biggest prize of all. We got to make a movie I got to make a movie with the people I know, which is first and foremost the most incredible thing. And more people who I didn't know. But we got to make something. They say it's micro budget, for us it's the world. Because we got to make something, we got to be safe making it, we got to pay people. We got to ensure that they went home safely as well. We don't have that stigma of not paying people that we do in our country. We don't have that stigma because of that. And as a result of that, however small the budget was and however little time we had to make the film, we got to make something that I suppose is Indian spirit, but is the possible true filmmaking of the future in South Africa.
Well, thank you for showing us what's possible. Yeah.
I hope this is not exactly what you guys want to make in the future. This is too painful. Make something, make comedies, make things that make South Africans laugh. We're going through the roughest time possible. We have to inspire audiences again. But if you want to make something like this, I want to see your version of it. I would love to see it. Yes, sir.
Who's it for? And it's just a plain question. Who is it for?
I actually want them to answer first. If you don't mind me asking, if you don't mind me giving them the platform. What do you think this
I'd
one is?
like the devil to answer it.
I will.
Devil demon gallery.
For sure.
Who is it for? It's for anyone. It's really for anyone. Anybody that feels, anybody that goes through a rough time, anybody that experiences loved ones. I mean, I'm talking from the sentiment of Tendi now. It's for everyone. Everybody in South Africa, everybody worldwide, just people who have understanding of life experiences and tough times and just, yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Oh, come on.
This is a hard watch for me. It's super triggering. I don't think South Africa really wants to be triggered. So, who is this film for? Man.
You're not one to, but maybe they need to.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think they need to be challenged in this way. But I don't think South Africans are really ready to be challenged in that way. Because we're talking about a very intimate thing, which is, male trauma. We don't speak about that because men aren't allowed to feel. That's across the board in South Africa. Unfortunately, it's something that we've got to put our brave face on. We've got to get on with the job. That's how we were taught from our predecessors and all of that. So it's a really difficult to watch. So I think you're right. Everyone should watch it. But I guess all I can say is I hope they do.
It's really awesome what you guys have done. The layers are incredible. Why I asked who is it for, because I'm in South Africa and I'm a black man, and I'm like, do we have the patience to watch an analogy of a crazy white man
You're right.
right, who ignores a black girl's background, like she has her past is not present, she is a non-feature. At some point I actually got angry at that white guy. And then I was just like, okay. So what you were saying or she's saying sounds right, because a lot of people would look at this and go, why should I care? He's got privilege, he comes from a great family, and doesn't give a fuck about this black guy. Why am I watching this?
Can I just add there and say that I like that point that you made about how he doesn't care about this black girl, because I think a lot of the time black women in South Africa have always had to be strong for their households because the men go out working and do this and do that. So for them it's like, okay, I have to hold this down as strong as I need it to be, and it's as though to some degree the woman is always forgotten, you know. So it's this kind of displays that.
Yes.
As angry as you may be, as angry
No,
as
no,
all of
I
us
like
may be.
being
Yeah,
angry.
yeah,
because
yeah.
that was then like, oh, okay, so that's part of the experience. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
exactly. Yeah.
In fact,
So can I interject? Tabiso and I had conversations about this for days. Because I said to him, why can't Mari be black?
not conversations, fights, in fact.
Because I said to him, why did you choose that ethnicity for this character? Because I said, I don't believe that. I believe that he could have been a different ethnicity, but Tabiso was pretty adamant.
No, it works.
Sure.
So, a big part of this movie for me was, what does racism look like in our generation? A lot of it is unintentional. A lot of it is things that are handed down to us from the people before, that come before us. We don't recognize it until it's pointed out to us. You know, a relationship like Marius and Tembi, without, of course, Nama being in the mix, that should be a common thing in our country. We're the country, we're the Rainbow Nation. We're the country that defeated, institutionalized racism, the racism system. And it affects everyone. It is violence to everyone. It makes victims of everyone. And for me, that's why the story is the story that it is, in the shape it is in. Men, we forget that we're not the only ones in our own relationships sometimes. We forget that we have incredible power to inflict pain. Sometimes unknowingly. Sometimes just raising a hand by accident. We become the specter of the guy who beat our loved one in that moment, and we inflict a new trauma. And we don't recognize it because perhaps it's our privilege. And that was the most triggering thing about this movie for all of us. And this movie was something that I really wanted to show, guys, even in a mixed race relationship, you can have forces coming in from the outside.
Interracial relationships.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
But in some ways, it's a very optimistic film.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's about us being our own saviors. In spite of everything that is stacked against us. I mean, that's kind of how I saw it.
That Nama is the metaphor for that. This external force coming in to disrupt what would have been a beautiful relationship if one allowed trauma.
Beauty is relevant.
If one allowed trauma to escape, that would have been it. Sorry, you want?
I just wanted to say, I think, I don't have like an exact answer to who this film is for, but I think what this film is for is to have the audience engage in these types of conversations. Because I think that's what's really important, is that, there's a lot of stuff in the film I think that is left for the audience to kind of piece together themselves and to have that conversation and say, well, okay, but, what was the dynamic of Tembi and Marius' relationship before his dad died? What did that look like? Because we don't really get to see that. There's a few intimate, conversations that they have before things kind of blow up throughout the film, but we don't really know what it's like. So there's conversations about their relationship that we can have as an audience, about why she stayed, did he ever really make her happy, all of these types of things that I think it's important for us, about trauma, about letting go of trauma, about letting go of pain, about loss. I think it's important to have these conversations. And I think that's what is really lovely about this film, is because it is provocative in that sense.
So I liked your character is that she's the only one who has real power. Everybody else is just, sorry. In terms of the story, not your acting, but that's why I liked your character. If you are looking at all of these people who are so caught up in their past, in their nonsense, in their victimness, then there's this character who turns out to be almost like a possession, but could be real people. Like she could represent, your character to me represents normal people who just want a moment in time to be themselves, to get what they want. And there's nothing wrong with reaching out to somebody who's falling apart.
Yes.
Because they can feed you something. So I don't see the evil character as evil. I think she's actually the saint in the whole movie.
Well, to add on to what you're saying.
She is. I know, no beef. Yeah. Because she has power. She doesn't blame anybody. She takes for herself.
I think to add on to what you're saying, I think so often in film we are given perfect characters that are likable.
Yeah.
And you are so keen to see where they go and what happens to them, and you're rooting for them because you really like them because, oh my God, they're like this idealistic people. But in this film, it's like you don't really like Marius. You know, it's like he's the lead character, but you're like, I don't know if I really like this guy. You want to like him. But the thing is, the thing is, it's because he's flawed. He's a human being, and I think part of what Ava or Nama's character represents is the flaw in humanity. Whereas she's just saying, look at these humans, look at what they're doing, look at what I can make them do, and she's the representation of that, I think.
If I may, just because like as you were speaking, you probably don't even remember saying this, because that's the thing about T, is that he comes up with these prose that like stay in my memory, and he like, I don't even remember saying that to you. But one of the big things that he said at the beginning of writing this, because T's been working on this for a very long time, is he wanted to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. And when I watch it, it's exactly what I feel. In the sense of that, it's this thing of, man, you know, if you're thinking like, we don't have racism in this country, everyone's getting along. You watch a movie like this, like, oh, right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we're not thinking about. But at the same time, you know, the guy who's going to watch like 5 minutes of adulting before going back on TikTok, yeah, maybe this isn't his movie, and that's cool. But somewhere out there, there's somebody who is looking to be shaken, looking to be like irked, looking to have questions answered. And that's the film. And what I liked about being on this project is there's a wave that's going to break in cinema. You know, I think we're all kind of getting sick and tired of the reboots. We're getting sick and tired of, you know, these dynastic sort of empty films. There's something very nice about this new wave revolution. It feels punk rock. It feels like, you know, 38. Yeah, it's honest. It's dangerous. It's something that might actually get a reaction. I mean, maybe this is just my thing, or the fact that I always played the villain. But when you said this film made you angry, I was like, good. Good. I want you to be angry in the car too. I want you to be angry brushing your teeth. You know, like that's the reaction we need.
Look, the reality is that the reason why these characters are so uncomfortable is because they're mirrors of us. And that's the allegory of the story. You know, the whole idea is that there are many levels, but they're all allegorical in nature. You know, Nama represents power. We are powerless against our government sometimes. We are powerless against the forces that move our country. And this is the level of allegory that I try playing around with in films like this. Unfortunately, we have only time for one more question, so MQ, go.
Sure. My learned friend there, Cody. That's why we love him anyway. Listen, mine is just to say what you've done, and I'm echoing what Adze was saying, what you've done by selecting, in fact, what you said, by selecting faces that we don't really know. I mean, Michael just came out of prison a few days ago. But by selecting these fresh faces that can interpret what, it's a difficult thing to prove to broadcasters and commissioning editors. Adze, we have these conversations every day, to prove to them that this is the correct person, this is the person I believe in. You have done really well, my man. Really, really well. And I think we honor you. And we salute you.
I just say that I'm only as strong as the people around me, and they are very strong. And I walk on the shoulders of giants, so that's all I have to say about that. So I appreciate it. But really, I thank the people who come before me to have enabled me to be here. I'm only a filmmaker thanks to them. That's all, unfortunately, the time we have. But thank you so much for watching the film. Thanks for the lively conversation. I know some people are going to walk out of this and Marius is going to be sticking in the back of their mind and trying to like wash it out and thinking about Tembi and oh my God, what is she going to do after this? Please, if you can, tell the people around you to watch the film, share it as much as you possibly can. It is on Netflix now. It's around the world. Surprisingly, I only found out the day it's around the world. We're getting conversation. We're getting people from the Philippines messaging just every single day. Canada, you name it. Everyone's saying that they found themselves in the story. So put the word out there. Engage with it. Thank you again. Thanks again to these lovely individuals over here who came together to make one beautiful day.
It was beautiful.